Welcome to another edition of Not Just Giants. I'm Matt, your host, and today I'm going to show you why this show is called Not Just Giants, because I've got two different topics to discuss today. The first of which is only tangentially related to the Giants, and that's the Arizona Cardinals' 28-16 Week 3 win against the hated Dallas Cowboys. And on the other subject, which has nothing at all to do with the Giants, it's related to fantasy football and revolves around the Miami Dolphins breakout running back De'Von Achane. Let's start there. For years, I played fantasy football for money, but the main reason I don't anymore is because invariably I'd find myself rooting for outcomes that only matter for fantasy rather than just for the pure love of the game, which, as an NFL junkie, is how I really feel about it. That said, just to keep engaged in the fantasy game, which is fun to both play as well as discuss, I manage a couple of redraft format teams in 12-team free Yahoo public leagues. But even when there's nothing at stake, I must admit I prefer winning to losing, can't help patting myself on the back when I make a good roster move, and gnashing my teeth when I get burnt. Yesterday was an all-time teeth-gnashing day as I watched Dolphins rookie running back De'Von Achane almost single-handedly destroy the Denver Broncos defense as he rushed for over 200 yards while scoring 2 touchdowns on the ground and 2 more through the air. If I didn't play fantasy, I would happily admire the young man's historic performance, but because I drafted Achane with the last pick in 2 of my leagues and dropped him both when he wasn't getting snaps, I will experience extreme regret for the rest of the season. To be clear, it wasn't that my rationale for dropping Achane wasn't fundamentally sound. After watching his teammate Raheem Mostert have a big week in Week 2, where Achane barely touched the ball, I willfully chose to ignore the Shanahan-McDaniel coaching tree's tendency to, when you least expect it, cycle through backs and then go with the hot hand. After Mostert ran for over 100 and 2 scores against the Patriots, could you blame me? No. But do I blame myself? Absolutely. Achane might prove to be a league winner, and although no one would have predicted the kind of rare game that even Hall of Fame running backs don't have, it's gut-wrenching to know you saw the potential, drafted him, but then let him go for nothing. If I had kept Achane, a potential league winner, I could have smugly patted myself on the back as the smartest guy in the room. But instead, after dropping him for nothing, I'm just a clueless village idiot like everyone else. And speaking of not knowing anything, we have the 0-2 Arizona Cardinals 28-16 home win against the 2-0 Cowboys, another outcome few saw coming. After blowing out the Giants 40-0 and dismantling the Jets 30-10, the Cowboys looked unstoppable. But because this is the NFL, in Week 3 they traveled to Arizona to play the Cardinals, who on paper are a bad team everyone expects to be deflated after blowing a 28-7 second-half lead to our Giants in Week 2. But many fans often forget 2 things. Number 1, the NFL is a matchup league, and number 2, game script matters. Even in their 2 losses, the Cardinals showed they could run the ball with James Conner, and their quarterback Josh Dobbs is himself not only a good runner, but is also showing himself to be a solid game manager. Meanwhile, the great strength of the Dallas defense is their pass rush. When playing with a lead, like they did in their first 2 games, they can pin their ears back and bury their opponents, as we saw against the Giants and Jets. But what happens when forced to play from behind? The Cardinals established the run early against the Cowboys, built a lead, and managed the game with a consistent rushing attack and infrequent low-risk throws. And right there, you have a blueprint not only for beating the Cowboys, but giving your squad a great chance to win every week. Ironically, because the Giants were blown out by the Cowboys and beat the Cardinals, from a matchup perspective, the Giants, once they got their passing game going against the Cardinals, proved to be a tougher opponent for Arizona than the Cowboys, even though Dallas has a better roster than both the Cardinals and the Giants. Against the Giants, when the Cardinals needed to stop them with their pass rush, they didn't have the horses to get it done. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, with their great pass rush and mauling run game, they're better equipped to play with a lead. When New York tried to play catch-up with their pass game in Week 1 against Dallas, the game went from bad to worse, as the Cowboys were able to tee off against a porous Giants O-line. Similarly, when the Giants had to play catch-up against the 49ers and their elite pass rush, their offensive line did not afford Daniel Jones enough time to utilize their speed to make plays down the field. But against the Cardinals' mediocre pass rush, Jones had enough time to make throws deep down the field, which then created space in the middle and short zones. And the end result was a 31-point Giants second-half comeback win. And yet Dallas could not manage to overcome a much smaller Arizona lead. What this proves, albeit within a small sample size, is that if the Giants can get solid pass protection, with their receiving weapons, New York's passing offense likely has a higher ceiling than Dallas's passing offense, as long as they're not facing very good or elite pass rushers. So what this tells us is that on any given Sunday, if game script goes their way, i.e. playing with a lead instead of from behind, a relatively weak team like the Cardinals can beat a very good team like the Cowboys. And with a favorable game script, one team, in this case the Cardinals, can lean on what they do well, run the ball, mitigate what they don't do well, downfield passing and pass rush, and mitigate what their opponent does well, rush the passer and run the ball. And that, my friends, is what makes the NFL football the most unpredictable, exciting, popular, aggravating, and fascinating sport in America. I'll take more of that, please. On to week 4. Let's go.